you.
Thank you very much. We are gathered here to capture the final phases of the impasse which came into being after the announcement of the results of the 1st December presidential elections in the Gambia. This was the first time in Gambian history that an opposition force managed to dislodge and entrench a ruling party. After the acceptance of the results, the incumbent decided to reject the results. The current achievement that has been made is due to the fact that when the incumbent decided to unilaterally annul the results and call for fresh elections, that was seen to be unconstitutional. And the supporters of the coalition should have marched towards the State House to claim their victory. But guided by the desire to establish a new political dispensation resting on constitutionality and the empowerment of the people, the president, at that time president-elect, decided to read the Constitution and interpret it correctly, that in a situation of political transition, the incumbent still had a term to serve. And that by the 19th, when that term ends, he must go without any compromise. So the Gambian nation settled to preparing for a constitutional transfer of power. And consequently, stability was maintained and peace was maintained. Peace with preparation for justice and truth to prevail. As the 19th drew close, the incumbent was convinced of the inviolability of the rights of the person declared elected to assume office on the 19th. ECOWAS, as a regional institution, decided to mediate. They discovered the key to maintaining peace in the Gambia. They agreed with the president-elect then that according to our constitution, it is only the Independent Electoral Commission that had the mandate to announce the results of elections, and they had done so. And the person declared elected must assume office on the day that the term of office of the incumbent expires. So that became the doctrine of ECOWAS's mediation. The incumbent decided to hide behind legality by filing a petition in court. But that did not also serve as a bar from the assumption of office of the person declared elected if the court decisions became inconclusive, and that was the case. It became inconclusive. So it was very evident that by the 19th, the court could not save the incumbent. Then unconventional means were utilized by involving the National Assembly in the declaration of a state of emergency in order to prolong his stay by 19 years. That was conceived to be the last straw that broke the camel's back. The president-elect then saw the need to prepare for the utilization of unconventional means to be sworn in and thus introduce a contest of legitimacy in the acquisition or occupation of political office in the Gambia. There was no doubt that ECOWAS, seeing that the incumbent could only be backed by military force to remain in power, ECOWAS also prepared a standby force to ensure that the elected president will assume office. The standoff began, and it was very clear that after the inauguration of the president-elect and being sworn in to be the president of the Gambia, then something had to be done. Either the loser who used unconventional means to extend his mandate will prevail, or the winner who used unconventional means to be sworn in would prevail. That could only happen through peace or war. Efforts were made by ECOWAS at mediation. Ultimately, the ultimatum had to come that last effort mediation will be done relying on people outside of those who originally were selected by ECOWAS to be mediators, and consequently the President of the Republic of Mauritania and the President of the Republic of Guinea became the main mediators at the final phase. The mediation eventually completed its direction, and they succeeded in getting the incumbent to leave. There were indications that the incumbent wanted the negotiation to be prolonged before signatory of agreement, but it was seen that the longer he stayed, the greater the chance of confrontation. And eventually, the mediators decided to come up with their own arrangement, backed by previous offer by the then president-elect and now president of the Republic of the Gambia. At a time when the incumbent decided to show some element of intransigence, the president-elect showed reasonability at the time. And consequently, internal mediators took part, some from the Christian denomination and others from other sectors of society. That mediation led to a demand for the president-elect to write a letter to the incumbent indicating what is being offered for him to go. And the only letter that was written offered that he could be an ex-president, just like ex-President Jara, enjoying the rights and privileges of an ex-president. So this is the offer that was made, but eventually, even with that offer, the internal mediators could not reach a conclusive phase of the mediation. But on the 21st of January, the mission which undertook to carry out the mediation issued a joint declaration by the Economic Community of West African States, the African Union, and the United Nations on ways and means of remedying the impasse so that the incumbent will relinquish power. It is important to understand that the mediators had one principal objective of how to ensure an end to the impasse in peace and how to prevent war. The language of the communique emphasized two aspects of demands made by the loser in order to relinquish power. One was for members himself, his family, the cabinet, members of his party, to have their dignity, security, safety, and rights respected. Number two, to have their properties that are lawfully acquired to be protected. And in addition to that, to be free from intimidation and anything that amounts to witch hunting. So in essence, because of his agreement to the terms that the declaration reflected, he agreed to depart the source of the Gambia with the notion that he is temporarily departing and will have the right of return. He departed, and now we are faced with the final stage of the impasse. That is the return of President-elect Barrow. President Barrow. Now, President Barrow has been consulting ECOWAS since they facilitated his departure from the Gambia in order to promote enlarged mediation. But eventually, when the declaration of a state of emergency was instituted, it was seen unwise to make any attempt for his inauguration at the Independence Stadium as planned by the coalition. Consequently, his inauguration took place at the embassy in Dakar. Now, he's engaged in consultation with ECOWAS. Apparently, what is supreme in the consideration for his coming is security. And at this very moment, he is issuing a statement in Dakar to indicate what arrangements have been made for the ECOWAS security forces to collaborate with forces in the Gambia to ensure the security. And that is his position. It is important, as the spokesperson, to inform you that I have just been performing a transitional role. The president, by tomorrow, will begin to take measures to cooperate with the National Assembly to ensure a reversal of the declaration of a state of emergency. The National Assembly is likely tomorrow, through the instance of the current Secretary General, likely to declare the state of emergency null and void. Efforts have been made also to work on the plight of the returnees. And there's a joint operation by the government, the security forces, and the Red Cross to go to the borders with buses, water, and other amenities so as to ensure the return of the returnees. There is also discussion with the security chiefs so that all those people who have been detained would be released. And the information is that all of them have actually been released. So if anybody has any information of anybody who is still detained, then it is your duty to inform the Inspector General of Police or to come through the office of the President so that that issue will be handled. And the Secretary General will be so asked to also give any information of such a nature to the Inspector General of Police for speedy action to ensure that there is no person who is detained on this territory, in this land. It is important also to emphasize that this is a passing phase and there is need for cabinet to be constituted. This may be done in a protracted way because of the situation. So I'm sure tomorrow people will begin to hear announcements of those who are likely to be ultimately sworn in to be cabinet ministers. The vacuum should be understood that it was caused by prolongation of the stay of the incumbent who should have departed from office and should have indicated his intention to depart since the 2nd December. And that would have given rise to the announcement of the shadow cabinet, which is already formed to a certain extent, but then the shadow cabinet would have done its work of meeting the ministers who are leaving office in order to know their strategic plans, their policies, their programs, their plans of action, their projects, their budget lines, and receive the dossier in order to prepare to assume office. So you are being told that what is to be done is known and actions are being taken to do so with immediacy. There is likeliness of some element of conflict which should be managed in such a way that it does not become antagonistic, leading to confrontation. There are ECOWAS forces coming to Gambian territory. We have discussed to show that such actions should always require much caution. And those forces should know that they are coming into a sovereign land, with a sovereign people, sovereign security institutions, and must make sure that in coming they force consult and engage in collaboration rather than taking full control. So it is important, and the President is being so advised, that an aid, military aid, a Gambian military aid, senior personnel of the Armed Forces of the Republic of Gambia, who is respected by the soldiers, who know Gambian territory, institution, and the institution, to arrive in Banjul as early as possible. We are expecting the aid tomorrow to be able to work with the security forces, the security chiefs, in order to provide the guidance that is necessary so that the current security situation will be properly managed and avoid an emerging conflict, which we have already avoided in the peaceful resolution of the conflict. So we hope that the consultation that is now taking place with those who control last aspect of this transition will help us to build the architecture of a new Gambia, an architecture that will help us to evolve democratic republican instruments such as the Constitution and laws, democratic republican institutions, so that the parliament, as it is National Assembly, will cooperate laws that could be reversed right away before the next elections to be done, and the freedom that the people desired to be guaranteed, and ensure that a bastion for prosperity could be nurtured. This is a period of transition, and I am sure that the will is there, but then people should expect mistakes, since we have a coalition with different level of expertise and knowledge, and some would be regarded as aides and would make certain declarations. But what must be clear is that any declaration that does not come from the President of the Republic and from me at this given stage, it should be taken with a grain of salt. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Halifa Sallah, spokesperson for the coalition. We now move to the question and answer section. We invite questions from the members of the press. Thank you.
Sir, Daniel Finnan, Radio France International. Nice to meet you finally. Could you give us more detail on whether you actually agree with the joint declaration that was put out by ECOWAS, the African Union and the UN, whether you were aware of those two elements that you discussed, the immunity and the property of the former president?
What is very clear is that the UN, the AU, ECOWAS did not just simply willy-nilly make unilateral declarations. They relied on letters written by the president-elect to the incumbent as a result of internal mediation and request by the incumbent as to what the president-elect was offering, so that he would consider it and see whether he will hand over power peacefully. And I've already told you the elements of that letter. The elements of that letter is that he will be treated as an ex-president and will enjoy the rights and privileges of an ex-president in accordance with the laws and constitution of the Gambia. That's what I've said. So if the joint declaration reflects that, then obviously they'll be reflecting on what the president-elect had already offered to the incumbent at a given stage of the negotiation. In terms of the properties, that's not part of, it's not even an issue, Because what is said in the declaration is that properties that are lawfully acquired. So I don't know, why there should be hue and cry over that. Property that any human being, especially a Gambian citizen, lawfully acquire is property lawfully acquired. I don't know which government will ever come to deprive people of property lawfully. Maybe others will question whether the property is lawful. That is another matter. That's not the transition matter of facilitating a peaceful transfer of power. Those are issues that ultimately the legal minds will treat when the time comes.
Were the Bentleys and the Rolls Royces acquired legally?
And this is what I'm saying. We are not going into details because what was happening is the person with the mediation in a Gambian territory that he controlled at the time, that he accepted to move, and he was moving with properties. You can go and seize them. I'm sure he will not say no. How will he fight back if you said whatever he is taking will not go out of the territory? That's left to the government of the day, to the president-elect. And I'm sure he's having a press conference now, and he will be able to treat that, whether he will see that as a minor issue compared to the peace of the country, or a major issue which requires it to be handled in such a way that the person will not leave the territory of the land, or that now it's better whatever is left to handle it. I believe that's an entirely different matter, and that is in the hands of the President of the Republic.
Sorry, Martina Sales from the Wall Street Journal. Just to follow up on what you just said, could you please just tell us why you don't just straightforwardly say that you recognize the veracity of that document? Because you are telling us that you are, but you're not just straightforwardly saying, yes, that is an accurate document and we participated in drafting it. And further to that, we have been thrown off balance a little bit because the Foreign Minister of Senegal told our good colleagues at Reuters today that in fact there was no such agreement and that document was not correct, and that the leaders who were supposed to sign off on it had not all signed off on it. So I'm asking, we really, really appreciate all the detail you're giving us, but I would really like just a complete clarification on the legitimacy of the actual print document that has been posted on the internet and is circulating, while I really appreciate your focus on the specific issues which seem salient. We just need to understand whether a legitimate process was followed and this has been signed off despite what the Senegalese foreign minister is saying.
Well, I'm a different person. If you quoted a particular section of the document and say, is this accurate? Then I'll be able to answer you. You cannot just say a whole document, do you approve, when President Barrow is not a party to this. This is a document from ECOWAS, UN, and AU. We are not the people who should talk about this document. We can only appreciate that their mediation has given us the fundamental thing we aspire for Gambia to live. So,
but you do have to implement the contents of the document, right?
Well, what I'm trying to say, question what we cannot implement. If you ask me which portion you think we cannot implement, tell me, I'll tell you what kind of implement. Yes, so.
That's not what I said.
No. But I am also telling you that I'm not going to make general issues and comments. If you want specific issues, we deal with specific issues. If you have a president, minister of a country, they should deal with specific issues. What is important is to bear in mind that certain institutions participated, or institutions participated in mediation. They have come up with a declaration. Nobody from those institutions is saying this and that about the document. So for us—
Yes, they are. The Senegalese foreign minister is saying this and that about the document. Are you concerned that the Senegalese foreign minister is questioning the contents of the document?
I'm definitely not concerned, because that's an ECOWAS matter. Then whoever is questioning is telling us that ECOWAS was not their representative, AU was not their representative, those who people came, they came unilaterally. Well, that's a contradiction among themselves, not us. We are saying, as far as we are concerned, ask them the questions, what happened? What we know is that these were the people and the institutions which agreed that they will collaborate jointly to ensure peace and the relinquishing of power in peace. And that has happened. That's what we are satisfied with. Whatever qualms are there, Well, you can go and investigate. That is not really our issue.
Yes, Jean Barry, but earlier on you said all the documents was based on letters written by President Barrow. So is it that all of the conditions in the document were competition with President Barrow's letters?
Well, I've said very clearly that issues of property was not an issue in the letter that was addressed to the incumbent by the president-elect. The content of that letter simply said, President-elect at that time, Barrow, is willing to treat the incumbent as an ex-president with the same rights and privileges as ex-president Jawara, in accordance with the constitution and laws of the Gambia, full stop.
Does that mean a cast iron guarantee of immunity? Is that something that can be changed by your
I think really people's capacity to appreciate democratic dispensation is really being questioned. How can anybody presume criminality when nobody has complained about criminality in a constitutional setup? A constitutional setup, there must be institutions where you go and complain that my property or my relative has been killed, then we know that a substance exists. What we have throughout said, that we are now ready to build a new Gambia. And in a proper democratic setup, criminality must not be presumed, even when you believe that you have something or that or that. We are talking about legality now, not just trial by press. You can name and shame. Yes, that's what human rights is all about. But when you come to issue of judicial processes, then you do not allege criminality until somebody go and complain somewhere. You do not presume guilt until a trial takes place. And that is the type of country that should be established. And that is the type of country that this spokesperson is telling you he will always work to establish after all the injustices that people have been subjected to.
Halifa from BBC News. Are there any of the 14 points in that document that you disagree with and consider is something you won't do?
Well, what I have said is a declaration that came from these institutions to help us for Gambia to go and for us to have peace. What is important is when the government is asked to implement something, that's when negotiation will come. If the person who has gone said, I want to return to the Gambia, that's negotiation, that is discussion. Because it is expressed there, he will be leaving on the 21st, temporarily, and has a right to return. Why is that important? Because under the constitution of the Gambia, every Gambian has the right to move about the Gambia and to leave the Gambia. I don't see any government that will ever come and say, no, you have no right to return to the Gambia to a Gambian citizen. That will be unconstitutional.
Mr. Sallah, Jerome Starkey from the Times of London. You said ECOWAS soldiers are coming in to avoid an emerging conflict. Can you be more specific about where you think the threat of conflict is and what ECOWAS soldiers will do about it?
Well, I must say that as the spokesperson, I'm not saying that ECOWAS is coming to prevent a conflict. I'm saying that President Barrow is actually saying that, and he's having a press conference now in Dakar. I'm sure he will clarify. As far as I am concerned as a spokesperson, and I'm sure soon my mandate will end, I have gone everywhere in the Gambia. I do not see any threat. The Gambian people decided to carry out the most peaceful revolution in human history. When the incumbent decided to become intransigent, instead of going in the street and for people to be killed, everybody stayed at home.
Which to be clear, so you said that ECOWAS troops are coming in now.
Well, I'll clarify. I want to expunge myself from what is said. I'm giving a report. And I want to expunge myself from the report. I want to dissociate myself from the act itself. What I'm trying to say is that I, as a spokesperson, I've seen everywhere, and I was talking to the security chiefs right now, that I have gone everywhere and there is peace everywhere. A peace imposed by the Gambian people, not by military might. The Gambian people could have gone to the street in their tens and hundreds of thousands. They have that capacity. He could have been driven out. But before doing so, dead bodies would have been there. Blood would have been spilled. To avoid it, everybody concentrated on the 19th that it was uncompromising that he must go. And everybody stayed at home, schools were closed, everything, the country shut down. And those who were part of the security forces knew that what could they do? All of them decided to fold their arms. So that person in that state house had no one who will protect him. So the ECOWAS forces could have easily just marched into the state house and take him away. He knows that. That is the work of the Gambian people, the collaboration of the Gambian people to know that nobody will defend him, he will stand alone. So in that sense, what is anticipated now is to nurture that peace and to nurture a security apparatus that will be transformed to ensure that they respect the sovereignty of our people and their fundamental rights. This is a time for reform and institution building, not time to concentrate too much on the security apparatus that will lose sight of the task that we have for nation building, institution building.
So, just returning to the legal question just for a moment. If, say, in the future there was a particular Gambian who wanted to gather evidence about alleged crimes that former President Jammeh had committed, could you envisage charges being brought against him?
What has been said by President-elect Barrow then, and still emphasized, is that any time that criminality is alleged and processes take place, he will be more than willing to establish a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to look at all the elements of criminality and try to resolve it, because this is the first time in Gambian history that power is being transferred through the ballot box. So to nurture that culture, maybe looking too much into the past in a retributive way may not serve the national interest. So it is better to do it in a substantive justice way, ensuring that the truth is known, justice is done, some of them compensated if they deserve compensation. That is what he has said.
Is it true the economic troops are in Banjul, close to State House now?
Well, anything is possible at this time. We have news. I'm simply saying forces in the Gambia. I was trying to get clarity on their mandate, and at least I have gained assurance that it's not an invasion force, because that's what I was being told. The clarity I've been given, and I'm going to monitor. And you know, I'm a man of principles. If I see something, I'm not going to be used to be issuing statements that are not correct. What I have been told is that they are here to collaborate with the security forces in the Gambia. And as I've said, a military aide who has been in the Gambia Armed Forces will be coming to work with both the Gambian security forces and ECOWAS. That the problem is problem of management at the moment. You know, so in that regard, we expect that things will become very clear tomorrow, where they are, what their mandate is, and how they're going to handle their mandate. Well, somebody's phone number.
Sir, I have another question.
Sir, you did say your mandate will end soon.
Sir,
you did say your mandate as spokesperson will end soon, and we are expecting news coming out tomorrow for the cabinet. Would you be part of that?
Well, I think what you must bear in mind.
Oh.
Somebody just.
Yeah.
It's not that. It's a new government, you see. Essentially, what is important is that this is a transitional phase. That's why I'm saying that. some names will start coming so that the government will start working. And obviously, because of the situation, I think you've seen the role that I've played. And that role is always available as an advisor of the government, an honest broker that will always help the government to achieve the fundamental aims of the republic. Now, the issue of the cabinet will be determined by him and will be determined by him in the best interest of the country.
So you suggested, sorry, that as you announced the new cabinet members, that there might be dissent. Is that the security threat that you guys are worried about against Barrow? And if so, will that come within the coalition or outside?
I did not get that question. That you said.
You suggested that as the cabinet is determined in the coming days, that there is likely to be some dissatisfaction and possible dissent. Is there a possible security threat to Barrow with those announcements? And if so, would that come within the coalition or outside?
Well, I don't think I have ever made such a statement, have I? I've never made a statement that if he declares a cabinet, there will be dissent of any sort. No, I have not said that. And I hope that that will not be reported. Essentially, what I have said is that the troops that are coming, and as the information goes, that they are already here. I had to report to the president that that's the information I'm getting. So what is their mandate? And I am saying that type of a situation, without understanding their mandate, could create friction. And that friction could create some element of conflict. I'm emphasizing that such frictions could be managed and made sure that they do not become antagonistic to result in undermining the peace of the country. That's what I'm saying. That therefore, my role is at least to gather information as quickly as possible, inform them what is happening in the areas, and I have already done so by talking to the security chiefs. I'm sure by now, one of them should be going on television to indicate that the information I received is that they are not an invasion force. They were prepared to come when the conflict was at its highest level, and that now they are supposed to cooperate with the armed forces in order to create greater security as he comes back.
When he will come back?
Yes, well, that's the plan now. I guess the fact that we are talking about some security issues, clearly, maybe they already have their mandate that if this or that is secured, he will be flying to Banjul. But that is not information that I have at the moment. What we have advised. Well, let's say very soon. I think the word very soon. I'll just tell you, the advice that has been given is for him to engage in consultation with the ECOWAS so that the State House will be sanitized. That is, you don't know whether explosive devices are there, etc. So anything could be at the State House. So measures, that's why I'm saying a military aid is coming, most likely, and I'm sure I could even say that tomorrow, because that is the agreement, to work out those things. I think people should understand what has happened there. That this was an incumbent which decided to become intransigent. And at that time, anything could have been done. So if you are to reverse that process, you do not adventure. And I believe we would want to indulge your understanding that especially those who are here from the foreign press, that we will definitely be accurate. By tomorrow, we should know something that is definitive so that you will not be spending your time unnecessarily. That we will try to do as much as possible.
What is the security aid of Barrow by name?
Well, unless you want me to be President Barrow himself.
Are you suggesting you don't know the person by name?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I speak when I'm giving information. I'm saying he has a security aide who is well experienced and knows Gambia, knows the army, the security forces, who can easily collaborate with all the other security teams to give President Barrow what he's looking for, a leadership in the security apparatus that will guarantee not only his personal security, but the security of all Gambians.
So are you worried, are you concerned that the vacuum, are you concerned that the vacuum left by the lack of a president being filled by foreign troops is not going to go down well with the population?
Well, I'm not sure whether yet that vacuum is filled by foreign troops. I believe that the information we are airing out on the national TV is deeply appreciated by the people. I think the vacuum is well filled by the government. So I've already given you that information, that even the returnees, there was collaboration between them. I've given you that. I don't need to repeat it again. And I've talked about the release of the detainees, etc. And we are supposed to talk to the people in charge of tourism. I know the person will be very angry with me. I gave him this time to talk to him because they had some concerns and they would want the state of emergency lifted. I needed to tell him that tomorrow he will hear over the air that the state of emergency is lifted and the tourists could now come ferrying back to the Gambia. So essentially there is not a big vacuum. What is absent is a cabinet that should run this state. And I believe that people understand why that is the case. Unconventional means were utilized to swear in the president, and therefore we should expect the type of situation that we have today. Anybody who has not answered question?
Yes, it's only 1 year. It's only 1 year. How long will this ECOWAS forces be in here? And has there been a lack of trust in the Gambian military pertaining to their coming in?
Well, I can only tell you what I have gathered now, because I myself am investigating. Because I don't allow just information to be given to me. What I know as of now is that they were a force designed to intervene at the time when the incumbent was intransigent. They were supposed to support President Barrow to come back and take charge of the country. And they were at the bottom. But when the incumbent decided to leave, well, everything was over. Peace was restored. So what do you do with the troops? Do they go back? Or do they remain? So essentially, I think the information I'm giving is that they will remain temporarily to work with the security forces of the Gambia to ensure enlarged security for President Barrow to come. When he comes, he will hold press conferences. If the troops continue to stay, you will ask him, are these troops going to occupy our land? Is this an invasion force? Is it an occupation force? Well, that's left to the Gambian population to question. He will be your president, and he will have to answer to your dictates and demands.
The joint declaration, just want to return to one point. The joint declaration mentioned that this was a temporary leave for former President Jammeh. He temporarily left the country. Separately to that, because as we've understood, this is not necessarily something that the Gambian government endorses, could you envisage down the line that former President Jammeh comes back to Gambia?
Well, I have said it very clearly that no authority exists that can deprive a Gambian citizen the right to leave the Gambia or to return to the Gambia. That's what the Constitution says.
Mr. Sallah, Farah Fofana, staying up with CNN Banjul. There were reports on social media and images that a cargo plane was in Banjul at the airport last night to airlift some Jammeh's fleet of vehicles. Are you in the know as far as that reports are concerned, and would you like to confirm, and if they are true, what has been the position of the current government?
Well, I know you know that there is a power vacuum because of the way the incumbent left the country. And there was negotiation. And if you do not want to disturb the peace, in fact, I know you must have known that at the airport, even supporters of the coalition went there with their Gambia has decided T-shirts. And the security had to call me and say, well, this could lead to confrontation. So nobody arrested them. Instead, I was called. I had to go to the airport and tell them that, well, this is not proper. The person is leaving. Do you want him to continue to stay? Well, since they wanted him to leave, then it's better for them to leave and allow his supporters to let him go out, because that's the negotiation. So whether he has properties that he has negotiated with these people and he's carrying, well, that is not to my knowledge. What agreement was, what constituted his property. The important thing that you people must bear in mind is that people who are at the highest level with the coalition, especially the president, wanted Jammeh not to stay for any number of days. They wanted quick departure. So this may have led to many, many things, that you cannot have proper negotiation, assessment of property, etc. I think at the final phase, for his quick departure, eyes were closed to many things that were happening so that he goes.
Thank you.
That is my belief there.
Yes, Mr. Sallah, I want to ask, you talk about Barrow's personal security agents coming. I want to know whether it's a Gambian or not a Gambian citizen.
It must be a guy who will know the national army and know it. It must be. It's a Gambian citizen, of course. It has to be a Gambian citizen, otherwise we are still where we were. The Gambian citizen with deep experience, who the ECOWAS forces would respect, and the security forces in Gambia would respect, would have to be here to preside over the security transition. Yes, that's the reality. Please don't ask me to go into details, because I am not giving the information to give in the meantime. If you are dealing with securities, I'm sure now that we control the DRTS, when he arrives at the airport, the DRTS will be there filming him, and you will see it there. So that is the reality.
Are you worried now that there's a power vacuum at the office of the president, and of course the State House? Are you worried that those who work there might tamper with some sensitive materials or documents?
No, the place is well secured. All the places are being well secured. And in essence, when we say a power vacuum, you all know, we're not talking about disorder. Is there disorder in the Gambia? No. There is no disorder. I think we are more orderly now than ever before, without any force of might telling us to be orderly. When I went to the airport yesterday, the way young people just left and were taking photographs of people in a joyous way, I think we can have community security really. We can really manage ourselves with maturity, discipline, and democratic consciousness and tolerance of diversity.
Mr. Sallah, can we categorically say that the new government is definitely not a signatory to this communique that came out, even going by the signatures on Barrow's letters back to Jammeh when they were going back and forth with the letters?
Yes, what I'm emphasizing, because if it is reported that way, it's like we are in denial. I'm saying the President Barrow is not in denial. There is no need to deny anything. What we are telling you is the information. The information is that ECOWAS, AU, and UN held many joint missions. They came to the Gambia many times, prior to the elections, after the elections, after the declaration of results, when the confusion came. They have been here many, many, many times. I think the amount of money that has been spent through mediation by the ECOWAS region international community, I don't think it can be rivaled. Therefore, really, the Gambian people must accept the efforts made by the international community to ensure that we resolve our problem in peace. And it is an architecture that can be used now for crisis management. It's a new element in international relations. So we must not turn it into some form of mediocrity.
But we could not say that you're a signatory to it, even going by the letters that were exchanged.
Well, what I'm simply saying that I would not want to answer it in that way. I'm simply saying that the declaration is from the AU and ECOWAS and the UN. And as far as we are concerned, we cannot in any way somehow dismiss this as being disadvantageous to the government.
So is it an AU ECOWAS UN declaration, or was it just because the foreign minister of Senegal says they never signed it, it was just a proposal of the camp of Jammeh that they should sign it, but they never signed it?
Let me emphasize again that negotiation would have required Jammeh to make a request, then you take it to Barrow. Barrow look at the request and say, point A, B, and C, I agree, and he comes back to Jammeh, no, I will agree this. How long will that take? So it was communicated to the mediators that he should leave as quickly as possible. Well, that's what we got. And that's the declaration. Now it's left to ECOWAS when they have their summit. They can start attacking each other for abusing the mandate they gave them to go and negotiate. But as far as we are concerned, as Gambian people, we are happy that Jammeh has now finally departed in peace. So now we can build a new country.
Was the coalition invited to the drafting of the declaration?
The coalition is not a party to an ECOWAS AU UN declaration and cannot therefore be invited. What could have happened is the negotiation when it was taking place. If the coalition demanded that whatever they propose should go back to be reviewed and then negotiated until Jammeh and President Barrow sign, if that was the term, then it's understood. But you can ask that to President Barrow, either here or there or when he comes in his first press conference. But what I'm telling you is the demand for Jammeh to leave with speed was the major thing in the whole exercise. If that is what has led to this situation of simply declaring to assure Jammeh that anytime anybody wants to go against this context, they are willing to stand by him, well, that is left to ECOWAS, AU, and UN. But somehow he decided to leave, relying on this declaration. And somehow this declaration, in context, does not give Jammeh anything that he would not ordinarily claim. From my personal, but that's not a perspective of President Barrow. This is from my perspective, evaluating it as the spokesperson. I believe that correct interpretation, if say lawfully acquired, then if somebody property has been seized and that person claims that property, well, obviously adjudication should take place, and if that person is the lawful owner of that property, I am sure that that property will go back to that particular person. That's why lawfully acquired should be underlined. Something rights in accordance with the constitutional law. Well, clearly, for me,
Just when there was talk about this cargo, there was talk about this cargo plane, kind of getting some cars in the night.
Yes, well,
and it was supposed to be intercepted by you guys. What actually is the story?
Well, I don't know who has done the interception. This is not the spokesperson anyway. Maybe when you meet President Barrow, you can ask. I know that Jammeh was leaving, and he was leaving after he accepted to leave. Whether he said that these are my properties, but you know, it's a risk for him.
But was the cargo plane landing in here in the capital or not?
Well, as I have said, planes were there, and cargo planes were there. What is not clear is because of this power vacuum, the person was leaving office, the person is to assume office. Clearly, there was a power vacuum at that particular stage. I'm simply saying the president of the Gambia at any time could say stop, that from happening. But you can also close the airspace. But you're talking about creating more conflict. I think if you understand the situation, there are many things you could do, but things that will generate, some little bit of conflict is not what we need at the moment. What we need is for the man to go and we finish up with him and start a new. That's a personal opinion for me, not President Barrow. I believe that there are certain things that Gambians are talking about now. The state we were in of facing war, I think for him to go, whatever he goes with, it's left to Gambians to decide. The debate will go on. Is it right? Is this wrong? Should it be done? Should it not be done? I think the debate should go. It's a democratic society now. We can go in the press everywhere, say it's right, it's wrong. You can do voice pop and see what the Gambian people think. But I know for sure that what is in the mind of those people who are the mediators is for him, the demand that was given to them that he should leave immediately. He was asking for some more days for negotiation. But I think the demand that he should leave immediately, because most Gambians were tense. Every time they were saying, you think this man will really go? The number of calls I've received from Gambia, they said 12, but he's still here. They say he's at Coco Ocean. They say he's returning to the state. It was like, because people were not sure that this man will ever leave. So the certainty, I think, really is the reward of the whole process of mediation. The aftermath can lead to debates, etc. Now we can talk about the rights and all of it. And what is left there, I'm sure the security is there. Once they get instruction from President Barrow, they may go and do certain things. But the danger here is, what is the lawful property of somebody and what is unlawful property? These are questions. And if you want to build a new state and you want to build legality, you do not just simply say, this is my enemy, this is the so. I must unilaterally do things, unilateral seizures, unilateral. So it's not a good start. So it's better to give way to certain things and start on the basis of legality than starting on the basis of illegality to say that you are fighting illegality. That's my personal opinion, not President Barrow.
Thank you for joining us. We now come to the end of this press conference. Thank you.